course, the church's historic interpretation of Scripture is not free from being political. I think we all know that. And that was part of my own project in my dissertation. So if you're interested in hearing about that, I'll talk about it a bit. I've added to the bottom of the handout passage from the Gospel of Matthew. The first portion of it is shared with Mark, the whole question of the matter of divorce. It's that last little bit that is so distinctive and what I was looking at in my dissertation. And the question is that I was fascinated by was the whole question of those who make themselves eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. The first two categories of eunuch, those who are born that way, undescended testicles or things like that, that's understandable now still. And those who are made eunuchs by other people, certainly that was a common practice in the ancient world, whether to make eunuchs out of slaves or to castrate prisoners of war. But this whole issue of making eunuchs, making oneself a eunuch for the sake of the kingdom of heaven, is a little less self-evident. And so I wanted to explore that. And what the word eunuch, so I had to do word studies in Greek and Hebrew and a variety of other languages. And what I learned was that the word eunuch was never used as a metaphor until the church got a hold of it. It always meant castration and a castrated male. And it wasn't until the church got a hold of it and started worrying about the concept in the 2nd and 3rd centuries that it became a metaphor for celibacy, voluntary celibacy. And if you look at almost any commentary by any scholar, regardless of their church affiliation, you will find things that say, well, Jesus obviously meant chastity, celibacy. Jesus couldn't have meant self-castration because it wasn't, it would have been abhorrent to Jews. They wouldn't have been able to hear it. But again, nobody used it as a metaphor for celibacy until the church got a hold of it. And so my question was, why did the church have to change this? And there are a lot of reasons, and I could go into them over a cup of coffee sometime. But basically, there were two things two or three things that I discovered. One is that a castrated man wasn't a full man and couldn't behave in a manly way. And so the church didn't want people like that running around. They wanted men who were men and women who were women and nothing in between. And so everything that was characterized by eunuchs was not characteristic of men in virile, strong, self-controlled men. And so the church said we got to reinterpret this to get away from these unsavory characterizations. A second reason was that there were eunuchs who made themselves so for religious reasons in several other religions in the Mediterranean at the time that Christianity was rising. And these people functioned in ways that were not necessarily the same as the priests in their traditions. And so people would go to them for specific reasons, and it might be that they were outside the power structure. And so the power structure needed to rein them in. If you've got these eunuchs that are sort of halfway to heaven, semi-angelic beings, then what does that mean for the priests or the bishops or the institutional church? So it became important for the church to rein these folks in. And the third reason was that throughout Greco-Roman, the Greco-Roman world, and you see this in the scriptures, the whole issue of self-control is so paramount. And deny yourself, take up your cross and follow me. Paul talks about self-control all the time. There were arguments made that those who were castrating themselves were not exercising self-control. They should be better able to exercise self-control than by resorting to physical means. That was not an exercise. That was an admission of non-self-control. So we had to get rid of that as an opportunity, or as an option for the Christian man anyway. So the church had political reasons for reinterpreting this verse, and so it took a lot of digging to find that. It was a fascinating project, but following up on Hauerwas's critique of various kinds of biblical interpretation, there is a political reading. It can be a political reading by an individual, or it can be a political reading by the institution. And we have to be aware of that and know how we are reading the texts. And so I would challenge you to figure out how your Patronus is interpreting, is reading, is using Scripture. And we'll talk about that in a minute.